Alright, so let's just get to the point here. Making homemade bread can be such a daunting task. You've seen it in other videos and you've read it in cookbooks. Your measurements, they have to be right on the money. You gotta knead the dough between 10 to 15 minutes. Let that dough sit at the right temperature, that way it can rise. It's kind of like a science experiment that you hope works out. Anyways, for those of you that follow me, you know what my job is here, is to make things simple, user-friendly, and take it to the next level. Today, that's exactly what we're doing. We are making one of the most delicious homemade breads with cheese and herbs. This recipe right here is so easy to put together, you are not gonna believe it. The bread has an incredible texture and flavor, and the prep work is done in under 10 minutes, folks. It just doesn't get any better than this. Let's begin by grabbing 2 cups of all-purpose flour, which is 240 grams, and adding them into a large bowl. Then I'm gonna add in 2 teaspoons of baking powder, which equals 8 grams. Now you can substitute the baking powder for a mixture of half a teaspoon of baking soda, which equals 2 grams, with 1 teaspoon of white wine vinegar, which equals 5 milliliters, or you can just skip out on these rising agents and use self-rising flour instead of all-purpose flour. I'm also gonna add in 1 teaspoon of dry thyme, this equals 0.91 grams. 1 teaspoon of dried rosemary, this equals 1.12 grams. And half a teaspoon of fine sea salt, which is 3 grams. And I'm gonna mix all these dry ingredients together, that way all those seasonings and that baking powder are evenly mixed into the flour. Once the flour is well mixed, I'm gonna grab a block of manchego cheese. This one's been aged for 6 months, so it's got a beautiful nutty flavor, but it's not overpowering. I'm gonna finely grate 1 cup of it, which is about 83 grams, and add it into the bowl with the flour. Now to make this recipe, you can use whatever cheese you like, but try to use one that's been aged for about 6 months, as it gives this bread an incredible depth of flavor. I'm also gonna add in 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. This equals 30 milliliters. Now to make this bread, I'm using one from the Apollo Olive Oil Company. This is their Miller's favorite organic extra virgin olive oil. Truly such an incredible olive oil, beautiful depths of flavors, and it takes this bread to the next level. You'll find a link where you can get some in the description box below. And 2/3 cups of cold water, which equals 158 milliliters. And we're gonna start mixing all these ingredients together until we start forming a dough. Once you form a dough, get in there with your hands and start mixing it all together just to ensure that all the ingredients are perfectly combined together. And then you want to knead it inside of the bowl just between 1 to 2 minutes. This is going to help release some of the gluten strands in the flour to give this quick bread more of a traditional texture and flavor. After kneading the dough for about 2 minutes, I'm going to shape it into a ball and set it aside. For the next step, I'm going to grab a round baking pan. This one is 8 inches in diameter, which is 20 centimeters. I'm going to drizzle in some extra virgin olive oil and then brush it all around. This is to ensure when we add the dough in there and we cook it, that the bread doesn't stick to the baking pan. Now to make this recipe, you don't have to use a round mold. You can use whatever shape you want, from a square to a rectangle, but make sure that it's not too big, otherwise your bread's going to be too thin. Then I'm going to grab our ball of dough, add it into the baking pan, and using your hands, just mold it into the baking pan, making sure it's all in one single layer. Then using a paring knife, I'm going to score the dough on top. I'm just doing a simple crossy sign here. This is going to allow that dough to expand while it's baking. Then we'll brush a kiss of extra virgin olive oil over the dough. Finely grate in just a little of the manchego cheese. And sprinkle it with some dried rosemary. And we're going to add in our baking pan into a preheated oven. I've had mine preheating for about 20 minutes. Bake only option, that's just the bottom heat, 190 degrees Celsius, which is 375 degrees Fahrenheit. After about 30 minutes, this bread should be perfectly baked. Of course, every oven heats differently. In yours, it might take 25 minutes or 35 minutes, so keep an eye on it after the 25-minute mark. And you can always tell when your bread is done. You just pierce it with a toothpick, and if it comes out cleanly, it is ready to go. I'm gonna let this sit here for 5 minutes before we cut it. That way it can settle. After 5 minutes, I'm gonna remove the bread from the baking pan. And as you can see, look how easily the bread was removed from the baking pan, leaving nothing behind. This is the beauty of greasing your pan correctly, folks. Check it out, our homemade bread with cheese and herbs is done. You saw how easy it was to put this together. It has an incredible texture on the inside. The aromas are mind-blowing good. Let's give it a try and see how it tastes. Now it's time for the moment of truth. Let's see how this tastes. Here we go. What an incredible texture. You know, this is a quick bread. It's not a yeasty bread, so it's not very airy. It's a little bit more denser in there, but it doesn't matter. The texture's so good. And then the flavors, that manchego cheese combined in with those herbs, it's an explosion of goodness. You saw this, so easy to put together, under 10 minutes to prepare it, in the oven between 25 to 30 minutes. The aromas in the kitchen, insanely delicious. Make it at home. You're gonna absolutely love it. Really quick before I go, a shout out to a couple of my patrons, Jim Owens, Joan Killico, and Tommy Williams. Again, guys, thank you so much for being patrons of Spain on a Fork. You know how much I appreciate you. For the rest of you, if you're not with me on Patreon, consider becoming one. It helps with ingredients and equipment to continue making videos like this. You'll find my Patreon link in the description box below and iCard above. If you enjoyed today's video, hit that like button. Leave me a comment below, and if you're not subscribed, you know what to do. Smash that subscribe button. Till the next time, hasta luego.